Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. This past weekend, I put up a post on Facebook that was all about how to succeed in endurance events. And I want to talk about it here today. Because while I was thinking about endurance events like the racing events and the things that I do, while I was talking about that, I think so much of it, the same lessons, the same tactics and strategies are applicable in the business world, in the entrepreneurial world. And so I want to talk about these things with you here today as these lessons very much translate. I have this big event coming up in the next few weeks with a bunch of my friends and business associates. It's one of those 29029 events you've heard me talk about here before that Jesse Itzler and his team are behind. Where basically you hike up a hill over and over again until you reach 29,029 feet. That is the equivalent of Mount Everest. And these events are hard. They're incredibly challenging. And many of my peers that are participating in the event, this sort of endurance activity is going to be the first time I've ever done something like this. Now, I've had a lot of experience in these endurance events. The past 8 years, I've committed a lot of my time to a variety of different long-term or endurance-like activities, from triathlons, the hikes, to running long distances. I'm not an expert, but I do have a lot of experience, and I've learned a ton on the field. I've learned a ton off the field. I've had some really strong wins, and I've had my butt kicked a few times. Well, what I was sharing around these endurance events, again, it is so applicable in the business world, and I thought it would be a great conversation for us to have at No Days Off here today. So I shared the following thoughts with a handful of people in my circle. And as I mentioned, I brought it to Facebook because I thought, you know what? I think other people might be able to benefit from this. And based on some of the feedback I received, sounds like that's true. Here's what I shared with my group. I stated that to be successful at our particular event, this 29029 event, there's no question that you have to have a baseline level of fitness. You can't just show up and expect things to work out for you. There's a foundational requirement, right? There's a table stakes is what I called it. You got to do a sufficient level of training, no question about it. Well, same goes in business. If you're going to be successful in business, you have to show up with some standard or basic tactics or knowledge or just an understanding of how things work. It is very rare to show up as a complete novice and have any degree of success. But let's assume you have that because you're listening to the No Days Off podcast. You've been with me for a little while. So I'd like to think we at least have the foundational requirements. Now, in endurance events, barring some weird injury or truly unforeseen circumstance, if you don't succeed and you have this baseline level of fitness, it's because you mentally tapped out. It's because you quit. It's because you quit on yourself. You may decide that it just hurts too much or that maybe today just wasn't your day. You had some sort of weakness that entered your mind and you couldn't get it out. And once it was in your mind, it just beat you up and it won the battle. Same goes in business. And I've just seen too many times in endurance events and in business when someone signs up or shows up and they've got the track record, they've got the pedigree, looks like they've done the training, yet they don't win. They don't get to the finish line. They don't build that big business. And my aha, what I've realized is that the reason they don't succeed or the reason they don't cross the finish line is because they quit. They quit too soon. They tap out because it got hard. That voice in their head started justifying or helping them justify the decision to stop. So, knowing what I know and having had, these experiences where, I'm down emotionally, physically, and I'm questioning my abilities, having had that experience, I had to come up with a recipe to work through it. One that leads to finishing, one that leads to success. Here are the 4 core beliefs that I have that I know work for me, and maybe they'll work for you. Number 1, in events and in business, as an entrepreneur, you are going to want to quit. You're going to want to quit. It might be a minute that you want to quit, or a day, or a week, or a month, or maybe even a year. You're going to want to quit. So knowing that you're going to want to quit at some point, you might as well make a plan for it. Doesn't matter how prepared you are, how dialed your business plan happens to be. If you play the game long enough and you push your business and push yourself long enough, you're going to have a moment or 2 or 10 where you just don't feel like going on. Every single entrepreneur deals with this. So the moment is coming for you if it hasn't already come for you multiple times. So you might as well figure out well before it shows up, what are you going to do about it? In other words, create a contingency plan, an unemotional, basic, rather objective contingency plan where you ask yourself, when I really feel like I want to quit and I can no longer go on, I'm going to, and then whatever action steps you decide. Just plan it all out right now. Save yourself the stress and the agony. Now, for me, when this feeling comes on in racing and endurance events, as well as in business, I like to ask myself a couple questions. The first one I like to ask myself is, how will I feel tomorrow or next week or next month about my decision to quit? Like if I could put myself in the future and think about how I'm feeling in that moment, I'm looking back at that business I quit on or that event I quit on. How will I feel about that? Odds are for most of us, there'd be a degree of resentment. So that in me sparks a certain energy to persevere. If I make it past that question, one question that is brutal, but I love to ask, what will my kids think about me quitting? How will I explain it to them? Now, you may not have kids, but think about somebody you care about deeply. If you tap out on your business, if you give up on your dream, how will those people you care most about think about your idea to quit? How are you going to explain it to them? Now, for me, I'm rarely going to make it through those first 2 questions. I'm going to turn right back around and get back on the field. One thing I love to remind myself, again, in this contingency planning around you're going to want to quit, one thing I really like to remind myself in endurance events is that I'll be in my bed at night. I know that sounds like a funny one. I'll be in bed at night, no matter what I face all day long. In business and in life and in endurance events, doesn't matter. I think that you're going to find yourself looking up at the ceiling at night. To me, this is a reminder that the pain and pressure and stress, anxiety, internal chaos, none of it lasts. You will be in bed. And yeah, you might wake up the next day and get your butt kicked all over again, but it's not going to go on indefinitely. So do what you could do while you can do it. So number 1, you're going to quit. You're going to want to quit. So make a contingency plan. Number 2, this is a recent episode we did here at No Days Off. What you tell yourself matters. What you tell yourself matters. What do I mean? When you're competing in an endurance event or you're competing in the sport of business, if you keep telling yourself that you're not ready, you didn't train enough, you feel unprepared, it's harder than you thought it would be. It really hurts. When you start saying things like that, you start to believe it. It starts to create self-doubt. It starts to create unnecessary worry. Instead, it is so much better to say to yourself, I'm ready for this. I worked my butt off to get here. Here comes the pain. This is exciting. I knew it was coming. Now I get to go test myself. I'm living a dream. I'm an entrepreneur. So many people crave this and never do it. I'm doing it. That is such a different mindset. What you tell yourself matters. Number 3, in business and in life and in events and all sorts of things, again, that require long-term effort, practice relentless forward progress. What do I mean when I say that? In these long events, just like in businesses that take a long time to build, you have to do everything possible to eliminate the noise, to turn down the volume. And I think the best way to do this is just Focus on something more direct, what I call getting small with your focus. In the events I do, the physical events I do, to me, that means reminding myself to just put one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. In business, it's the same thing. Don't worry about what's coming down the road. I'm not saying don't plan, but just worry about what's important now. And then win that moment and let the momentum build. Let your actions compound and you be consistent. Don't worry about the rate at which you're moving and all that's in front of you. Just keep putting in the work one bit at a time. More times than not, one foot in front of the other, that strategy will lead to eventual success. And then lastly, number four, the key to success in these longer effort, resilient type of activities that we do, like building a big business. Number four is remember the goal. When you started your business, just like when you signed up for the endurance event, you had a dream or some sort of vision. You likely said to yourself some version of, how awesome is it going to be when I build this business, when I cross this finish line? How proud of myself will I be? How excited will my family be? There's probably all sorts of other things going through your mind when you started that business. You were excited. You were emotional. You couldn't wait to get to work. Whatever the case, you were inspired. I want you to recall that moment. When you feel down, when you feel like quitting, recall that moment. Remember it at the start. Remember it in the middle. Remember it when times get hard. Because I think that this is your time. I think that you set the big goal for a reason. So you might as well do everything humanly possible and leave it all on the field. Now, if for some reason you don't reach the finish line at the event, you don't build the business to the extent that you dreamed of building it, you're only going to be disappointed if you didn't put in the effort. Like if you gave it your all, you turned over all stones, you created as many relationships, you did everything within your power, you will not be disappointed. You'll only be disappointed if you still had a bit left in the tank and you did not exhaust it. And I plead with everyone listening today to never, ever, ever let this happen. Having some sort of regret, it's not worth it. So give it your all. And if you strike out, so be it, but at least you put forth the effort. I think that making the decision to build a big business, making a decision to sign up for some crazy event, that stuff is hard. And the months and years of the grind is hard. Getting to the finish line is going to be hard. I don't care what anybody says. It's a grind. So you have to run and walk and climb, crawl, and the equivalent of that in business. It doesn't matter. You just got to give it everything you've got. And I promise you, if you do that, you will not regret it. So I want to challenge everybody here that's going through maybe a tough patch in their business. If it's not today, it's probably tomorrow. We all go through these things. I challenge you to go back to this list and apply some of these tactics. Think about it right now. If you know you're already going to have this moment where you want to quit, then let's design a contingency plan right now. Change the way you're talking to yourself. If you're not doing it in a positive way, well, start doing it today. Make that focus of yours smaller. Take one step at a time and just put in the work. And then lastly, remember why you started this. Remember why you became an entrepreneur. Remain focused on that. Stay consistent, put in the work, and I promise you, it will pay dividends. That's all I have for you today in the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.